Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Sands. I'm the irrigation biologist for the Department of Fish and Game Commercial Fisheries. I'm going to basically be talking about the outlook. I brought 4 of them. They're right on top of that blue cabinet. If you want a hard copy, you can also get them at our office. It's available online. I'm going to go through, I'm going to just touch on the east side stuff real quick. Because we've already put together a presentation for a couple other folks, and so I thought I'd at least include the east side a little bit, and then I'll mostly focus on the Nushagak. But please feel free to stop me and ask questions as I go. So here we go. This is the forecast of 51.4 million. You can see, so the red dots are what the forecasts were, and the blue bars are what actually returned. So we've generally been under forecasting. Stacy thinks it's going to be a little bit closer to the actual forecast this year. And you can see we've had this good stretch of over 50 million returns to Bristol Bay. So hopefully that keeps going for a while. Here it is in numbers. And I'll talk more about the Nushagak specifically. But numbers by age class. All right, so 80% confidence interval, 37 to 66 million total run coming to the bay. Potential harvest surplus about 35 million is what we're hoping for. And the 3 ocean fish, last year we were really missing a lot of 3 ocean fish because of that 2019 brood year. So we think it's going to be much more balanced this year. I think for the Nushagak, we're projecting 33 to 67-ish% 1.2s to 1.3s, but I'll get to that later. All right, so for the Nushagak, last year at the end of the season, they kind of shut the district down because they're concerned about Nushagak making this escapement. They're really concerned that 2019 and 2020 brood year not having been very successful. They didn't see a lot of jacks that would have been fish coming back as 1.2s in 2025 last year. And so they're still concerned about meeting the escapement goal. So it's going to be play it by ear, but they're not going to be super aggressive in Nushagak. Possible Togiak only drift periods, which is something you haven't seen over there for a long time. Again, if you have specific questions about the Togiak, read the outlook for more details. And Travis Ellison is the area biologist, so give him a call if you want more details on that stuff. They did pass this. There was an ACR that proposed the Nushagak River Special Harvest Area. Travis said in the meeting we had last week, he said he thinks there's only about a 15% chance that it'll actually be used this year, but it's on the books. And I haven't seen the final regulations yet, but it's on the books and it's potentially going to happen. Again, if you have more questions, Travis is your guy. For the east side, Stacy Vega is the new manager. She was hired in the fall. She's replacing Aaron Tiernan, who moved on. And basically the short story is Igigik has got a relatively small forecast, like 5 million relative to Igigik, that's relatively small. And Nushagak is big, also about 5 million. So we'll see how it plays out. If you want more details, read the outlook or call Stacy. All right. Now, what I can talk about better is Togiak and Nushagak. So for Togiak, I guess the big thing is when can you go over there if you want to? The forecast is 980,000. That's a really good forecast for Togiak. I'm very optimistic that they're going to have good fishing over there this year. We had lots of 1.2s coming back to Togiak, and Togiak is a primarily 1.3 system. So I think a lot of the brothers and sisters of the fish that came back last year will be there this year. So they'll be bigger and abundant. The escapement goal midpoint is 195,000, and the current regulation is once we hit that escapement goal midpoint, then I make an announcement that opens up Togiak to outside boats. Last year that happened on July 25th. I would say sometime around then, maybe a little bit sooner. Depends on how the fish come in and depends on the weather. So, any questions about Togiak? All right.
What's the market look like?
So there's basically one buyer. That's the North Pacific. It's Togiak Fisheries, which is part of North Pacific. And I don't know, last year other markets went over there or sent tenders over there, or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen this year. Who's going to be interested or not interested? Yeah, Mike.
I'm just curious, there's an allocation.
No, there's no allocation for Togiak. Togiak, basically, they have a set schedule. So it's Monday 9 a.m. to Friday 9 a.m., except they have a peak period between July 1st and July 15th that it's Monday 9 a.m. to Saturday 9 p.m. But we can adjust that as needs be. In the last several years, we've pretty much done every extension we could possibly do. There's also a rule that we're only allowed to extend for 48 hours. So after they go back to their 9 a.m. Monday to 9 a.m. Friday schedule after the 15th of July, we can only extend it through 9 a.m. Sunday. So that's all in regulation. And then, of course, if there's tough weather, Togiak's kind of exposed, so it can be hard to fish if it's blowing 20 or 30 from the southeast. So there's not always the ability to fish over there. Okay, so I just took the two main age classes for the Nushagak, 2s and 1.3s, broke it down by river, and you can see 6.9 million 1.2s is what we're forecasting, 13.4 million 1.3s, more 1.2s for the Wood River, and a really big 1.3 return for the Nushagak River. Again, this is all based on the number of 1.2s we saw last year. It's for the Nushagak and Togiak in particular. The wood is much more mixed, and the 1.2s aren't necessarily a good predictor for the following year's 1.3s. But on the Nushagak and the Togiak, the 1.2s are a pretty good predictor of the next year's 1.3. So their siblings will be coming back a year older and bigger. So last year we ended up with 19 million total fish, and it was 80% two ocean fish. And I don't have the numbers in my head, but it was 80% two ocean. And a lot of it was Nushagak fish as well, because we had a lot of those two ocean Nushagak fish. As we all know, we have the stock of concern King Salmon plan, and it prescribes specific triggers. Those triggers are all based on percentages of the forecast. So we can start fishing in the district once we hit 635,000 sockeye salmon projected past the sonar, or 763,000 sockeye salmon projected past the Wood River Tower. If neither of those happen by June 28th, then we can start fishing after 9 a.m. on June 28th. We won't start exactly at 9 a.m. because we have to fish based on the tide. So depending on what the tide is, we would start June 28th if we haven't started prior to that. We also have additional escapement that we're allowing to go by that helps provide additional opportunity for us to not be worried about controlling the top end of the escapement goal for sockeye, so we allow more king salmon to go by. So basically, you take 15% of the forecast, add it to the top end of the escapement goal, and that's your top end that we're trying to stay under. We did that okay in 2023, not so great in 2024. So it's a hit or miss kind of deal. anyway, bottom line, 3 million is what we want to stay under for Wood River sockeye salmon escapement, and 2.5 million for Nushagak sockeye salmon escapement. Yeah.
Do you think the Nushagak River is gonna be the trigger this year based off of the forecast?
So in 23 and 24, we basically hit both triggers at the same time. If the run comes into the Nushagak as forecast, I definitely can see that happening because that's a 10 million fish for the Nushagak is almost unprecedented. It's just been the last few years that we've seen these big runs in the Nushagak. So I mean, when I first got here, we were fishing in the Wood River to protect Nushagak sockeye. We went in 2002, we went in on like July 3rd and never came out. And we barely made 300,000 escapement in Nushagak sockeye. So it's doing better now for whatever reason. Any questions on this before I move on? Okay. All right, so my best guess is around June 26th is when we'll start fishing. It was late on June 25th in 2023, late on June 26th last year. Last year, if I had to do it over again, I would probably have started earlier, but we flew the survey and we just could not see. It was by that time we flew the survey, the wind conditions were such that we just couldn't see in the water very well, and couldn't say that we were projecting those fish by the sonar or by the tower. They were going by, they were past the district, but we just couldn't see it. We'll work again with our test boats. BBSRA is running a test boat program again, and we tasked people last year with fishing one guy above the district on it was the Monday, the 24th, I want to say, and I think you and Fish went down below the district. Yeah, so anyway, just to try and see where the fish are and see what's moving through. They're very helpful and responsive to those requests. So we'll keep trying to use that and gather as much information as we can. Once we do start fishing, I like to have a longer opening to try and clean everything up and get things under control, and then go to subsequent shorter openings. We want to try and stay for the drift fleet less than 12 hours a day, at least through the end of June and as much into July as we can, but we still have to control the escapement. For the set netters, still try and get everybody out of the water at least once a day, if not twice a day, so that there's no gear in the water. But it's all going to depend on what the weather's doing, how the fish are moving. It's basically make it up as you go along. Yeah.
By all gear out of the water, you mean
Yes. Yeah, that's what we've been doing. Now, if there's if it's going to blow 30, we're going to put everybody in the water, because if it's blowing 30, then the fish are really going to move, and at least some part of the fleet will drop out at some point when it's blowing that hard. So again, there's no set rule. It's trying and gather all the information we can gather and make the best decision we can make as we go. Yeah, so whether we consider the Wood River Special Harvest Area. So the rule is once we hit 1.1 million sockeye past the Wood River Tower and project 1.4 million, then we can open the Wood River Special Harvest Area. When we're opening the Wood River Special Harvest Area in this scenario, it's to harvest surplus sockeye salmon. And because we're gonna let 700,000 up there before we even start fishing, it's very likely we will hit 1.1 within a day or two of starting fishing in the district. So it'll be pretty quick, like it has the last couple of years, that we're opening up the Wood River Special Harvest Area. The gear type that is behind, based on the allocation, the harvest percentages in the commercial district, gets to fish in the Wood River. Their fish is added to that allocation, those harvest percentages. So whatever gear type gets up there, if it's drifters, it goes to the drift harvest. There's not a separate allocation in the Wood River in this scenario. It's all added together to the commercial district. So what surprise is there out there? Everybody, one of the questions I get is what's the wild card, Tim? What do you really think? So BBSRI and the Nushagak Hydro Project, Nushagak Cooperative, have run the Nushagak Tower the last couple of years. And when they were running the Nushagak Tower, we were running the sonar. And we found that they're counting more fish at Nushagak Tower, more sockeye at Nushagak Tower, than we were indexing at the sonar. Both counts are indexes, but basically the sonar, when there's a whole lot of fish in the river, the sonar is looking from the side and it gets overwhelmed. It can't count as many fish as it would if there were smaller volumes of fish. So when we counted basically 1.8 million fish at the sonar, 1.8 million sockeye at the sonar in 2023 and 2024, they counted 2.4 million sockeye at Nushagak Tower. So 25% more. And historically, there's also a significant proportion of the run that doesn't go up the Nushagak, it goes up the main stem of the Mulchatna. So there's a lot more than 25% more sockeye in the river. So going back to 2021, when we counted 4.6 million sockeye at the sonar, or 2022, when we counted 3.5 million, we don't know. Those are our indexes, but I mean, if we miss 25% or more of the fish, that could mean another million fish in the river. So potentially our forecast for the 1.3s from 2021, sorry, 1.2s from 2021 and the 1.1s from 2022 could be a little bit more than we forecast.
Tim,
Yeah.
based on your observations there and those numbers, are you able to use like, your gut feeling as to what may really be passing portage,
No. No, the count's the count at this point. Now, obviously, there's going to be a Board of Fish meeting in January, and who knows what will be discussed there, what will come out of that. But our index is our index, and that's the number we report and use. All right. So one of the other questions I've been getting is because I have a big drum called mesh size that I like to beat. What mesh size is appropriate for this year? We have 33% 1.2s in the forecast, 64% 1.3s. So that is most similar to 2022. So if you're looking for a mesh size and you had one that worked good in 2022, you might consider using that one.
What's the average weight of a one?
It varies from year to year. And I don't have, I'd say I think our Bristol Bay average was in the low 4 pounds for everything. I don't know that I've looked at it other than the whole fishery, not by age class. Stacy is a good person to ask that, or come by my office and I can find it on my computer somewhere, but I don't have it in my head. But I think we said that the average weight for all of Bristol Bay was like 4.2 pounds last year. Tab's nodding.
Do you know, would there be a significant difference in the weight of a 1.2 versus a 1.3?
Absolutely, a pound plus probably.
FRI has this year's forecast at 4.6 for the 1.2 to
Okay.
4.2 or something like that.
Yeah. And I think somebody made me pick a number and I said around 5.4-ish for average weight for all fish this year. Anyway, I won't beat my drum right now, but
Can I ask a follow-up? based on your experience and observations from Port Moller, does Port Moller earlier in the season give you an indication as to how a particular age class may be coming in weight? Or do the big ones come first and the little ones later?
No, I think they're definitely mixed. Yeah, I'd say they're mixed, but I don't know. I more look at the genetics and see how many are Wood River, how many are Nushagak, how many are coming through this district versus other districts, more than age class so much. Because I don't care what age you are, I just want them caught. Mike, you got your hand up?
Well, you may have covered it, but are you predicting that the big ocean fish will be smaller than they have in the past? I don't know if you said that.
No, definitely fish size has declined over time. And I know the FRI folks kind of have some models where they project fish size based on run size. And so a smaller run would produce bigger fish. And we've all heard of big run, small fish. And that's been true, but I don't know, like I said, this year, 2024, smallest fish we've ever seen, even though we had more fish in 2022. But was that just because of the age class mix? 2022, it was the opposite, 31%, lots of 1.3, not so many 1.2s. So age class makes a big difference in the proportion of each age class. But the fish at age, I think a 1.2 from 2010 would be bigger than a 1.2 from 2024, right? And that trend is continuing. And whether it changes or not, if we drop down to a 40 million run versus a 50 million run, remains to be seen. Okay.
Tim, I'm really trying to wrap my head around that previous slide you showed about the undercounting of the sockeye and the Nushagak River.
Okay.
If it's 25% undercounted observed, I mean, what is the department planning to do differently with the board to address that? 'Cause that seems like a huge discrepancy that is really costing the fishermen a lot of money.
Your counter's off a million on forestry counter than a Newark counter. You counted 1.5 here and the Newark counted 2.5. We never even counted the Mount Chotna and the Major. Holy cow, Tim.
How do I get back to
Go to file up left.
home? File or home?
Oh yeah, I think there was home.
Hold on. All right, where's the slideshow?
Oh, it's at the very top bar.
All right, so I don't know what's going to happen to the Board of Fish. I can't answer that. You are stakeholders. You can show up at the Board of Fish and lobby for what you want to happen, and that's the best thing for you to do. We don't have the money to make this perfect. I got these 3 little videos here. This is what it looks like counting fish in the sonar, right? This is left bank inshore, and this is low passage, only 364 fish. But you see these dark striations here? That's the shadow from these fish up here. That makes sense? Okay. So that's the shadow. Like I said, and now here we are at 1,237 fish going by in an hour. See, there's a lot more shadowing. So this is what our crew's looking at, and they're trying to click on each one of these fish to count it as they watch the video. Just let this play out. I think it's gonna. So you see more shadows and more shadows. I think it's. Okay. So that's a big day. And you can see that's why we're missing fish. Now, what is the solution to that? We don't know. And we're short-staffed. So Stacy took a new job, and the person that was running our sonar took Stacy's job. And that position is not being filled this year. Cole is the guy. So we've had 3 people in that position in 3 years. And this year it'll be vacant. And we're doing the best we can, but we don't, Cole just trying to learn everything from zero and make it better. And then he moves on. So that's part of the problem. And whether or not putting a sonar offshore and aiming it in, or another sonar out a little bit further offshore and aiming it out would make a difference. We don't know. We don't really have the sonar to do that with. We don't have the money. We don't have the staff.
A hypothetical, if you will, say that somebody were to file an emergency petition to target that harvestable surplus that looks like it's, 60, 70% more than what's being counted at Portage. And if you had to work with numbers like that, I mean, what sort of adjustment, if somebody put something like that, I don't mean to, well, I do mean to not put you on the spot unofficially,
I don't have an answer. I don't know. I mean, king salmon are a stock of concern. I don't know that the board would do anything to add additional exploitation to king salmon. I don't know. I mean, there's certainly people that want a lot less fishing, commercial fishing, to protect king salmon. So that's a very sharp double-edged sword you're talking about wielding.
And while we're on the subject of kings, you mentioned there were rumors floating around that you're having to deal with phone calls and stuff regarding allocation, apparently. Another one of those rumors that came back from the Boston Seafood Show was that we were going to be delayed even further and not fish until sometime in July for king conservation.
I've heard that rumor. I think so. I went through my chain of command to try and get definitive answers before we put the outlook out, asking, is there going to be some surprise decision that comes from way up the chain that is going to change what we've been doing for the past couple of years? Because frankly, there was something that happened last year on the morning of June 26th, after we'd already put out an announcement. There was somebody that was like, we're not doing it right and we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. And anyway, I have not been told that there's anything going to change the way we've been doing it. So I'm proceeding with doing everything we did the same way as we did it the last 2 years. That's not to say that somebody up above me can't come in and say, nope, you're doing this.
And up above you is the commissioner and the governor's office.
No, well, I mean, that's the top end, and that's probably where it would have to come from. But no, I have a regional management coordinator, a regional supervisor, a deputy director, a director. Well, actually, the deputy director and director is the same person right now. And then the commissioner. But there's also the sport fish side of things that can weigh in.
Thank you.
What do we anticipate for kings this year?
We have no forecast. Last year, 2024 was a little bit better than 2023. Hopeful that 2025 will be better than 2024. And there was some indication in one of the research trawls that they did out there, they saw more juvenile king salmon than they've seen. So, fingers crossed. That's a good sign. Skin, you had your hand up?
That counter we have at Porter's Creek, this is just say, if we move that counter where it's clear water and shallow water, that will give you a better count.
I mean, so,
Like west and east channel, the mouth of it, whereas
well, they have it at Nushagak, and the water at Nushagak is about,
the newer count is a whole different ballgame. They count it 24 hours and they see it. They see every fish go by.
well, they don't, 'cause, the Nushagak's still deep and kind of murky. So,
They still count by hand.
yeah,
They don't have count. They don't have a,
Every 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and they multiply by 6.
yeah.
but they still can't see everything at Nushagak. The water gets high there, and so it's marginal. And I don't know on the main stem how high up river you'd have to go. It takes 5 days for fish to get from the district to Nushagak at least, or maybe it's 5 days from sonar to Nushagak. Can't remember, but there's a big lag, so it's not very actionable.
Yeah.
If we had to wait till we projected 600,000 fish past the Nushagak Tower, we wouldn't fish till June,
Right.
July. So, Catherine.
I was wondering if you or how are you measuring the tactics you're using to conserve king salmon, like delaying us doing the windows closures? Are you able to measure how successful that is?
So I guess the best measure I can come up with is in 2024, if we hadn't had the regulations we have now, we would have started fishing on June 21st versus late on June 26th. And in that time, I think it was 18,000 escapement for king salmon. Now, obviously, if we fished, we wouldn't have caught every one of them and all that, but still, what we told the board was using these methods, trying to find a balance between not having no sockeye fishery at all and letting every king go by, or yes, we're going to end up killing some kings, but we're going to still have a reasonable fishery. Trying to find what the right balance is there. We said these triggers would provide meaningful king salmon conservation, and I would argue that allowing 18,000 king salmon, almost half of our total escapement through the district in that window that we otherwise would have fished on them, is meaningful.
I mean, some of the other tactics you're using, though, like the closures and
No.
keeping clear of the water, like are you able or kind of?
No, but the board was very clear that they wanted closures throughout the fishery, at least through, the 10th of July. They wanted closures for, even though a fish can't get through the whole district in a 3 or 5 hour closure, it's still something. And so I want to be able to stand in front of the board and say, look, we did have closures, we tried. And I'm sure it makes some difference, but I can't put a number on it. Anybody else?
They never told us what gear to use.
Use the gear that, look how you're catching your fish. If all the fish are caught around the belly, you're using too big a gear. Oh. No, because the reporting is not very good.
Can you read the question?
Yeah, sorry. Can Tim tell us the king catch numbers for the past couple of years from the set net versus the drift net fleets?
Because the numbers we get, so we get fish ticket numbers, and the fish ticket numbers are one thing, and then I get production numbers from the processors, which are what they counted going through their line, and those numbers are significantly bigger than what they have on the fish tickets. The fish ticket numbers are kind of the official numbers that the department uses. But the reporting rate just isn't the same between set net and drifters. So I don't have good numbers, and I don't trust the numbers that come from fish tickets.
You're saying we're liars?
No, not at all. But not every personal use king that's caught in your set net is on a fish ticket, is it? And not because you didn't ask the tender to do it.
I wish you just had the power, you know, when we're fishing sometimes, one tide where kings are just blasting through or catching shit out of them. I wish you had the power to shut that tide down on us, so.
We don't know it until it happens, right?
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why, because historically, we are past the 50% mark on escapement past the sonar by between June 24th and June 26th is the 50% mark of king salmon escapement past the sonar. So we don't start fishing until then. Then we're more than, in theory, more than 50% of the run in a normal year has gone by completely unmolested. And we know from past experience, even like 2018 was the last year we had a good king salmon escapement. We were 97,000 king salmon escapement. And 2018 was the biggest year ever in the Nushagak district. We had all kinds of boats. We fished really hard, and we still made the king salmon escapement goal. And I would argue that if the kings are actually there, they can make it through. And the reported, I mean, we used to catch 20, 30,000 kings incidentally in the sockeye fishery, and now we're catching like 5. So there's just not that many kings out there.
You know, Tim, you're trying to protect the kings. You're doing the best you could, but these other peoples outside the district ain't doing what we need to be done. That's the problem. You're doing what you have to, but the other guys won't pitch in us. The trawlers and all these other guys, they don't freaking give a hoot.
Again, I understand what you're saying, and I have no authority on that.
You're the boss.
I have a very little boss in a very little corner of the world. Yes.
How do you count a king past the sonar? Is it a sonar count or is it a drift count?
So the way we count, so the sonar counts fish. You saw the video, and they're just little things. You can't tell one from the other, right? So our crew goes out and they use 3 different mesh size nets, and they do a bunch of drifts. And based on, there's an inshore and an offshore, and based on the number of fish in each strata and the number of fish they catch in each net, they use the catch per unit effort stuff from the nets, or catch probability for each net for each species, and then they apportion those raw counts by strata into species. It's complicated. I can't explain it more than that.
It's complicated, and then you have the 25% that we were talking about.
25, yeah, right. No, it's complicated. Mike?
Just, you didn't mention anything about Chum, which we saw almost done last year. About the whole Chum situation.
So we made our escapement goal for Chum in 2024. There's no recommended status change for Chum. We're certainly concerned about Chum. We feel like all the efforts we make to protect kings are also going to protect Chum. But yeah, Chum are definitely.
It seems like it's dramatic.
Yeah, yes, and it came back up a little bit last year, but it's not, you know, the million Chum that we used to get on a regular basis in the district.
You know, just think about when all these kids had Pampers years ago. I remember the kings and dogs used to come first. Reds never used to show up. Now the kings are showing up with the reds. It's just really hard.
Right.
It's different now.
It is for sure. It used to be, I would say May 22nd is the day that somebody's going to catch a first king here in the subsistence net. And it seems like now it's June 10th, 12th. I mean, you know, we used to have a lot of good, a tide or two of good king subsistence fishing on the beach in the first week of June or the early second week of June. And that's, to me, that's kind of the chunk of the run that we're missing. And I don't know why or how. We haven't fished on it that hard. So why it just disappeared, I don't have an answer. So the runs are smaller and more compressed.
I know your answer. Get out there in the high seas while these damn southern guns doing something.
we're missing hundreds of thousands of king salmon from just the Nushagak, but you take in the Kuskokwim and the Yukon, hundreds, maybe million king salmon are missing from what we historically see. And they're just not catching that many in the trawlers. So they're catching 30,000 something. That's not the whole. It's a tiny, tiny hole. It's not the hole in the bucket.
I think what you're saying is, it's totally true, and it's why I know you can only manage what's in front of you, but I think at this next Board of Fish, as much as you can communicate, or as much as you can measure what the changes you're doing and report out what change that's made, but even like at this last Board of Fish, when like the seasons that made us become a stock of concern, if there had been zero commercial catch, we still wouldn't have made the escapement goals, correct? So I think, and I don't know that there was like a hyper focus on the reporting issues and the discrepancies between commercial reporting and what the processors have, and there were a lot of reasons. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but I felt like the board got very, very focused on that, created a double reporting standard. There was a ton of time spent on that and not a lot of time zooming out on, this is a problem that we should all be contributing solutions to, but you could shut the entire commercial fishery down and we'd still have
Right.
the same problem.
Yeah, and I think I've said that right. We could. That's where I say there's got to be a balance, because we could have shut the whole fishery down and saved 2,000 to 5,000 king salmon last year and not caught 12 million sockeye. And is that a reasonable trade-off? That's my call to make. That's where the board comes in. But I think a lot of people would argue that that's not really a reasonable trade-off, especially when we don't feel like we're at the point where king salmon are going to go extinct in the Nushagak. I mean, we still had 41,000 escapement, and once whatever productivity switch has changed out in the ocean, that says instead of getting 3 or 4 king salmon coming back for every one that spawns, we're getting 1 or 3/4 or 1.1 1/4, whatever the number is. That switch needs to switch again, and I think it will. I think, if you look at the king numbers over time, there's definitely ups and downs, and whatever has made us in a down right now, I think we'll switch, because when I got here, we were in a down, and then we had 2004, 5, 6, where we literally had 500,000 king salmon come back to the Nushagak River, and lots of strong years in there up until 2018, and then all of a sudden that productivity switches off right now for whatever reason.
So the department had a pretty big range for the forecast, up to 66 million, and the average of 51.6.
Yeah.
Do we have an idea of where that variability to what river system might be, that extra 15 million fish?
Well, it's built into each different run. And, I talked about the Nushagak River itself, where we had those bigger years that could have been bigger still. Those were my wild cards. But yeah, I don't know. That's just Tim's gut kind of ruminating on things.
Here's a stupid question.
No, not for you. Never.
So here we are out having a big, they farm fish in Alaska and there's other stuff they do. All this stuff. We're having so problem with king salmon. How come we don't just try to have a little, try to get our own salmon thing back? King salmon eggs and stuff. Is that possible?
That is a long, involved conversation. Actually, my boss just gave a talk on that exact thing for the Yukon Tanana, and what the kind of the policy of it all would be. It's complicated, and it's not. First of all, it's not generally that successful based on what I heard her say. It's generally not been that successful. They have a cannery a hatchery up in Canada where they've been trying to do that, and they get like 4 or 5 fish a year back from thousands of eggs that they.
So it's very hard to do it.
Yeah, it's very hard. And one of the selling points of Bristol Bay salmon is that there's no hatcheries here, right? It's a completely wild run. And the minute you put in one, you've changed all that.
Well, we could put it in your sauna.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Fritz?
I know we're supposed to ask Travis some Togiak questions, but just one thing, if that special harvest area goes into effect, I was just looking at your map there, and I'm thinking that goes right up to the mouth of the Alagnac, which tends to be a pretty cyclic system, but some years produces like 5 million sockeye. You know where we are on that cycle?
I know that Travis said if they did use the Kersha, that's what they're calling it, the Togiak River Special Harvest Area, he would also probably use the Alagnac River Special Harvest Area, but only for set nets, is what he said the other day.
But I guess my question, here I am, fantasizing on, hitting that system. If, we knew, roughly how many and when those Alagnac fish would show up.
Alagnac's been doing very well. It's been doing very well, and part of it is because, they've been taking breaks to get Togiak fish up there. And when you let Togiak fish go, you're also letting Alagnac fish go. So
Those have been fairly consistent.
And you can pull up our AMR online and find the escapement information there. You can call Travis. The other thing I'll say about that is if they go into the Togiak River Special Harvest Area, it also pulls in Igigik, and no dual permits allowed in Igigik. So, anyway. So again, Travis is the guy who talks about this.
Thank you.
You gotta stay in my lane.
Okay, do we have any new buyers coming in? Same ones?
Yeah, I mean, technically one less, right?
Okay.
Since it's all Silver Bay now, not OBI anymore. All right, well, you guys know where the office is. If you have any more questions, you want to come visit or chat, I am going to be out of town for a bit here, starting next week.
Wait, stop. When you open the Wood River, is it drift or something?
Yes. It depends on what the allocation is.